architects of all the nations of Asia join in the union which we called Arcasia, tasked to improve the beauty of our native land, design the structures for the benefit of man. All architects are the artists, gifted by the creator of the world. Let us show to the world that we are children of the loving Lord. It is the aim of architects of Arcasia, always to be of service to all people. Now we are here in spirit of the common faith. Long live the Congress of the Asian Architects. All architects are the artists, gifted by the creator of the world. Let us show to the world that we are children of the loving Lord. It is the aim of architects of Arcasia, always to be of service to all people. Now we are here in spirit of the common faith. Long live the Congress of the Asian Architects. Arcasia, Arcasia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Acya Web Forum 2020, session number 2. And today we are broadcasting live on the 21st of May, 2020. My name is Kawarizmi Nohisham, the convener of the Web Forum, and I would like to welcome all of you today. This forum is organized by Acasia Committee on Young Architects, one of the committee of Acasia. And Acasia stands for Architects Regional Council Asia, which has 21 architecture national institutions as member countries. Acasia aims to foster and maintain professional contacts, mutual cooperation, and assistance among member countries. And with that spirit, it has been translated into the form of international forum, workshop, lectures, and exchange platform. That includes this web forum that we're having today. So without further ado, I would like to invite architect Maria ALORA from the Philippines to moderate our session today. So ALORA, the mic is yours.
Yes, I'm Angeles from UAE, Philippines, and I will be your moderator for today. We welcome you in our move on to the session. The COVID-19 outbreak movement control order has been extended to 14th of April 2020. To keep us productive, Acya brings the session. So before we start, participants and viewers, you may ask questions by clicking question mark icon, the Q&A icon at the participant column. You can put the time constraint. We will select a few questions for panelists' comment. You can also download the slide to the dedicated web, which will be given at the end of the session. Fawad Suhail Abbasi, who will be delivering his topic on the pre and post COVID design practices. So a little bit about Architect Fawad. Architect Fawad is an architect, partner in lead design at Suhail Fawad Architects. He is a co-founder of his father, Architect Suhail Abbasi, in the year 2000. Architects is an award-winning multidisciplinary architecture and interior design firm based out of Islamabad and Karachi in Pakistan. Their design approach, simple and straightforward spaces that are experimental, material-friendly, and proved contextual. He has been able to transform the organization with the guidance of his father and continue to diversify and experiment on multidimensional projects with a vibrant team who they believe is the asset of the company. And it's this team that completes. So let's start the presentation. Architect Fawad.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. Um, as I said, greetings from Pakistan. Hello and assalamu alaikum. It's an honor to be part of this really important webinar forum, and I think I must congratulate the chairman Rida Razak from Malaysia and the deputy chairman Bisma Askari from Pakistan and the entire team of Azmi and all of you who were able to do the first one, and now the second one is in happening, and it's a huge effort with the pandemic that's going on. And people are remotely working from their home offices or going to their offices for a little while. I don't know how that's working, but it's something that most of us have never experienced or would never want to experience again. But again, every nation has tackled it in its own way, and some have taken drastic steps to make sure that the pandemic is controlled and people are safe. So like I was saying that a number of things are happening, and we like to ensure that that things are in better state, and everyone's keeping safe in the best way possible. The government of Pakistan, of course, is one of the 180 is trying its best also to make sure that people are staying home or people are trying to maintain social distancing. Pakistan is one of the 180 countries that have suffered. So drastic steps like lockdowns and curfews and SOPs to contain the pandemic has been taken in the last 2 months. And the graph sadly has gone up in most countries, including Pakistan. So media campaigns have been run and media campaigns have been running constantly. The economic bailout for labor class has happened in Pakistan, and daily wages, and I mean daily wages have been given some kind of support from the government. I would like to also talk about the initiatives taken by our institute before I start with my formal presentation. Of course, the Institute of Architects Pakistan has taken drastic steps to ensure that we're all connected in some or the other. The PM Fund, the Prime Minister's Fund, and where the IEP, the Institute of Architects Pakistan, and the Pakistan Council of Art and Town Planners are contributing for the betterment and for the people of Pakistan. There are online webinar sessions and lectures happening, recently done by the eminent architect Yasmin Lari, and PCAT-P is part of it also. So people are being given awareness of what needs to be done or how it needs to be done. So IEP is very active in that part also. IEP members are participating in international online competitions conducted by Acya and other as well. There's assistance for the IEP members, and the idea is to help out IEP members in whatever way we can. There's a design for a quarantine center that was done by a young firm from Karachi called Touchless Design, and they designed a mobile hospital and given an idea for a mobile hospital. So the number of things are happening. Then one of our colleagues, a younger architect, Amna Nabil from Islamabad, has been part of the first quarantine COVID hospital that's happened in Islamabad. So like I said, well, we were talking about the idea of what needs to be done in this kind of a pandemic and what our office can do to make sure that everyone's safe and working from home or they're working remotely from work. So we sat down, I remember in the first day that we decided to close the office down and people work from home, and we looked at the way forward. So I remember I had a long discussion with my father, who's the principal of the office, and we said, okay, we need to try out something which we've never done before, and we need to do that and see how people can work from home. So there's less of physical contact, and physical distancing is done properly. So and then I remember talking to Mr. Jahangir Khan, who's the immediate past Acya president, about how he's operating his office and how remotely his staff is working. And so it was the first time, and we started working from home and by sending our sketches and discussing our sketches, doing development process drawings, discussing how a 3D visualization. And so work was coming, we were talking on Zoom, we were talking on WhatsApp videos. So it was quite a new thing for us. And we decided that we need to try this out. So we've been working for about 8 weeks from home, and the staff comes in once or twice a week, and they have meetings if we really need to. And then we go back and then work from home and try and do that a lot. And of course, SOPs are maintained both at work, at sites. And so it was quite a new step for us in terms of what needs to be done for the future. I'll start with my presentation, and of course it's called the pre and post-COVID design practices, and how and what we've learned from the last couple of weeks working from our home offices. Let me start from my first slide. We talk about responsible design. In times of crisis, being a responsible citizen and architect, we question how can we help. So like I said, we talked about architects. Now, what do architects do? What kind of buildings do architects need to design? An architect has to be really, go back to the drawing board and decide what can be done, what is important now with the kind of SOPs that one has to maintain. It's a global pandemic. Where do we go back? Do we look at the most simplest of materials? What do we do? So it was a to and fro kind of a situation, constantly discussing amongst our colleagues. It's happening a lot on our on social media now. You switch on a TV and that's all people are talking about, what to do next. But as architects, as designers of the future, do we decide that it's going to be a complete change? Do we decide that it's going to be something that will be designed in a way that people will go back and forth and improve and specialize in something that will be more effective for the coming years? So smart building planning, allowing for movement with help of touchless technology. So the last few weeks have made us rethink a number of areas in the realm of safe design. With minimal human-to-human interaction, it now relates to all schemes of building types and how technology will play its part for a better world. In most developed countries, there's already a mechanism in place, but in most, we are not even close. So the point was that when we go back to our offices, or we go back to a mall, or we go back to any place that is where we will be socially interacting, there will be physical distancing. So what do we do now? What better can we do now? And these last few weeks have actually made us rethink the number of elements of safe design. In Pakistan, the malls have recently opened up. It's Eid coming up in the next 2 or 3 days. People are a number of people in our country, 1,000 millions, who really don't understand how tough this is, what a serious situation we're in, and they're not really doing safe distancing in a matter. So now, as architects or designers, we need to go back and think what type of building types do we look into? Do we decide on buildings that are larger, are safe distancing maintained? So in a context like these, speeding up development of all types of touchless technology, automatic doors, voice-activated elevators, cell phone control, hotel room entry, hands-free light switches and temperature controls, automated luggage baggage tags, and advanced airport check-in security. So this was something that I've read about, and it kind of, and we talk about it a lot now when we sit together, or we have a situation where people realize that they have to be away from each other. They need to, the idea of touching a handrail, touching a doorknob, touching an escalator, an elevator button, everything has to be kind of automated. Is that the new world we're talking about? Is that the idea that we need to take from today onwards? Luckily, we were doing 2 very important projects within the firm. And in this time, we could go back and redefine and redesign that. For a recent project that we're doing, we started talking to our client and talking to him about what needs to be done now for the future. everything needs to be designed around contactless pathways, meaning employees will really have to touch a surface with their hands to navigate through the building. Lifts can be called room from a smartphone, avoiding the need to press a button both outside and in, while office doors will open automatically using motion sensors and facial recognition. So the idea was smart building planning has to incorporate technology. It has to incorporate what we call the new future of the world. And it was already happening in most cases. In most developed countries, it was already, everything was being ordered by a simple iPad or an iPhone or a Android, and it was within your hands to simply. So that in this last few weeks, people are ordering online. They're doing a number of things that are all automated. So we are already into a situation where it was happening. So will that be the new change? We've looked to eliminate direct contact with communal services, right from the street to the workstation. Says Keka, adding that the blinds, the lighting, ventilation, and even ordering a coffee will be controlled from your phone. Well, it's already happening, and it's going to be at the next level of that now. So I think it's a serious change for all of us around the world. With 80% of infectious diseases transmitted by touching contaminated surfaces, this hands-free future could well catch on at. This is an amazing article I read, and I thought it was very pertinent to our talk today, where everything will become automated. So is that the new era, the new world we're talking about? One of our projects that we designed a few years ago, I thought I'd share that with you because, again, for an office building like this one in Karachi that we designed, there are a number of communal spaces where people gather. I mean, there is the safe distancing, luckily, because this office had more space to work with, but not most offices have that. So, but particularly this office I took up because I think because this office has a number of working spaces. It's got meeting rooms, open and closed meeting rooms. They've got multi-story cafe. And when we were designing it a few years ago, we never had an idea that a pandemic like this would come. Nobody had an idea. So I think, do we go back to the finishes again? Do we think of what we need to do now? This is a prime example of what architects will have to be doing to ensure that things are safe for everybody. And I mean, someone coming and touching your chair, someone entering a boardroom, a meeting room, a cafe, a washroom, everything is kind of exposed now for a disease that is a very serious situation. So I thought this particular office and the new ones that we're doing, we need to go back to what needs to be done. The safe distancing element, which is part of an open office plan, will have to be relooked at. So like I was saying, allowing for physical distancing. While social distancing would seem to be necessary for temporary action, it's reasonable to think that concerns about future viruses might encourage architects to design with an eye towards open spaces that enable and encourage people to spread out. So are we looking at offices that are more open, that are more spacious? Are we looking at completely not looking at people that are sitting in open offices, which was something that I picked up in the last couple of years? Very soon, legislation might be introduced to mandate a minimum area per person in offices, as well as a reduction in maximum occupancy for lifts and larger lobbies to minimize overcrowding. So again, if we go to a large office building, you would see a couple of elevators, we'd see escalators. What happens now? I mean, do we try and look at lift design, elevator design in a different way? Do we and make sure that only 3 people or 2 people get into an elevator? How do we make sure that physical distancing is maintained? So, I mean, people have started to really look at the repercussions of what can happen and how big this can be. The reason of the post-COVID and the reason why I want to discuss that is because one of the recent hotel projects we were working on, this time gave us the opportunity that we went back to the client, and the client was interested in knowing what needs to be done. We were already working on the idea, and we finally decided, okay, listen, we have to go into automation. Everything needs to be controlled by a simple button. So in this case, we redesigned our elements within the hotel, and we looked at getting online and getting a room booked online, entering the hotel, going directly into your room through an online elevator. So everything has been thought about in terms of automation, and we were able to discuss it, and the client were very, very supportive that way, because they realize now that this will have to be done. So this particular hotel that we're doing in Islamabad is something that we were already doing, and the post-COVID idea or the post-COVID design parameters that we define with the client now is looking at complete automation of the hotel itself, starting from the elevators to online check-in to operating an elevator, operating an escalator. Everything is now being specialized and redefined with the MEP consultants, and we're looking at even air conditioning for that matter, because that's another huge issue that might come up now, because the conversion and the way it spreads is really, really scary for many. So we've gone back to design again and looked at what can be done in terms of automation for the hotel as well. Like I was saying that, do we go back to these things again? And why do we go back to these things again? Because a simple fact that we had not really looked at that for the future. We were doing, and especially coming from a developing country like ours, we had really improved our systems. Open office plans were already on the decline before COVID-19, and Deven, who is perhaps most famous for advocating for and redesigning anti-open office deep works chambers, hopes workplaces leaders will take the best of what they've learned from virtual working to help create office spaces that allow for a balance of isolated concentration and productive, meaningful collaboration. What then happens, we thought about it, and what then happens to the many co-working spaces like WeWork and many others which were developed in the last couple of years. It worked for many startups, young entrepreneurs, one-person offices who thought it was a great way to find joint ventures within realistic means. What happens to the existing office spaces with the rentals go up even more? So like I was saying, what happens to many co-working spaces that are offered culture within office spaces also? These office spaces had gone away from having these cabins and moving into open office where everybody could just sit and work. Do we rethink that as well? What happens now? People have invested millions in redesigning their office spaces in the last few years, looking into an open plan office space. So do we go back to rethinking that as well? I'm sharing a project that we're working on again pre-COVID, and again, we would both go back to our clients and discuss what needs to be done. So better linkages with wider corridors. In a post-COVID world, we will have to simplify our vocabulary, look at more open to sky or semi-open space, better connections inside and outside, self-cleansing materials while rooms increase natural ventilation and reduce central aircon solutions. We also need to introduce far more opportunities for hand washing and sanitizing and automated or manual sanitization methods for elevators and escalators. So that's a huge new change because this particular project is a mall and it's a high-end residential tower with a sky park on top. So what does one do redefining these particular spaces? We also really need to reduce carbon footprint by sourcing. And I think architects are talking about that constantly, about reducing a carbon footprint and using local contextual materials, which is the best way to build local or design solutions that follow regional and cultural norms. Example, sound and circulation design, central courtyard plan for increased sunlight, privacy, and ventilation. So we have to look at systems and spaces that are naturally ventilated. There are less use of air cons because that's the biggest way to spread the disease through artificial ventilation. So it is something that you really need to look at now. And this particular project gave us that opportunity to really rethink. And our team sat back together again to talking about it and looking at it with the client, that what we can do at this stage when the project is under construction because this will go on for a very long time, and we need to be very, very careful. Again, the same project, I mean, if you look at the sky park on the top floor, where there's a swimming pool, there's a gym, there's a futsal ground, there's a volleyball court, badminton court, and people will be interacting a lot. What does one do? What does one do to ensure that on the top level, where people, of course, there'll be an open to sky space, will they be needing what SOPs need to be done, what design interventions will have to happen to ensure that we stay away from each other at a certain distance, which we talk about. So this project did give us the option of redefining our design philosophy, or redefining our requirements for the end user, to make sure that things are improved and they're made better. For a project like a sports building that we designed a few years ago, the Polo Complex in Islamabad, where we done, one of the buildings was the dining facility where people would gather, or the groom's dormitory spaces, where we had already central multiple courtyards within the corridors were large enough so that people would have social distancing in a better way. We'd already looked at that, and of course, when you're in an open space, you could constantly make sure that the SOPs are followed, and people make sure that they stay away from each other or are at a certain distance. So, luckily for some buildings, we are already catered to most of them, but now for the future, I think that is something that we need to really look at or rethink in terms of how it can be made better. Organic living methods, roof gardens, terrace farms, and courtyards. Again, this is something that we saw in the recent post-COVID house design that was done by the Acya Committee Young Architects, where 180 plus entries came in, and everybody talked about how people can look at technology and look at doing everything within their homes, within their means. Do we go back to our roots? Many countries around the world have redefined their lifestyles, redefined the way of living. They produce their own fruits and vegetables, have energy efficient homes, and most importantly, live as simple as they can. So we do need to come back to living more simply, which we'd forgotten, I think. We need to look at energy efficient homes that are self-sustaining, naturally lit, ventilated, and easy to maintain with minimal domestic staff, which is a norm in our part of the world. So, I mean, we need to look at that, because, I mean, we're so dependent on our domestic staff that it's hard to make these changes in our life, which is something that has to be done now. By reducing traffic of people coming into the household, we can reduce the chances of contagion. So one of the examples that I'm showing you is one of our projects that we did. And again, the courtyard house and the open to sky spaces or cross ventilation, naturally lit houses were already a good example of how we can be safe within our own homes. And I think a number of architects were looking at that, and they were already doing it. So, so when something like this comes in as sudden as we went through, being safe in your own home will be something which will be we need to be looking at constantly. Now, when we talk about offices or corporate spaces using non-porous antimicrobial materials, designers will increasingly call on antibacterial fabrics and finishes, including those that already exist, like copper, and those that will inevitably be developed. There will be serious efforts made in reducing the number of flat surfaces where germs can sit, and installing ventilation systems that allow for removing potentially contaminated air in many given areas. As responsible designers, we need to ensure usage of insect repellent plants, because a number of architects do, even as we do, use a lot of plants within the office spaces. Applications of low VOC paints and low maintenance protective partition screens and openings for light ventilation and movement. For example, these offices that we did in the last year and a half, if we go back to these things now, I mean, the staff working there would move. They would leave their marks on a chair, on a table, on a column, or on spaces that can be is very dangerous now in terms of the global situation that we're going through. So, do we redefine our design parameters? Do we redefine our design philosophy and look at what can be done for safety of these the staff that comes in every day to your office? Another example of our project in Karachi, where we were already looking at natural light, we were looking at meeting rooms that were independent, and people could be more away from each other and doing things that are more open and in open plan situations. So I think many architects around the world were already looking at, but because the rentals are very expensive, there are a number of times you fit in too many people within one space, and it's quite hard to maintain social distancing. So I think what I'm trying to say is that we need to revise, redefine systems that maintain physical distancing and becomes a priority now in terms of that. And again, the idea of finishes. What materials does one use in situations like this? Are there materials that we will be using in the future? Will that be a new question as an architect, as a designer? So we need to go back to it and see what better things one can do for the future. Human-centric design to cater to minimal human contact. It's again a very, very crucial situation. It's we need to refocus and come back to a situation where we have to figure out matters and materials that will become the need of the hour. Various cultures are built around historical perspectives, traditions, how we meet and greet our family and friends, going to our place of work, place of worship, a mall, a cinema, a school, an office building, a park. Each space will now need an SOP, a protocol to maintain required distance. How will we use general corridors, staircases, restrooms? In any case, where doors in public spaces were already on the way out and were likely to be eliminated wherever possible. This is an example of an office building we did recently, and it was designed on the basis where we were able to pursue the client and tell them that we need the natural light to come in somehow. And use these large terraces and corridors and staircases so people could move more on these rather than focus on using the elevator or the escalator. And it was an amazing exercise and the process where we were able to set this standard for the client, and it became an example for the next building we did. And this has become a very popular building for us in Islamabad, where the client, we're doing the second phase of the building now, and we're using the same concept of open corridors, staircases, natural light. It's worked very well. So I think that's the need of the hour. That's something we will have to look at now. And it's become a very important element of any design exercise to look at it again and again for better safety and for social distancing. In the last many years, office spaces had moved towards open planning with less cubicles, general hierarchy that all sat together, a workstation with less partitions and no specific allocation of spaces. You and your laptop would find an empty space and utilize it. More large and small meeting rooms for discussion. So in the last few years, we saw this particular philosophy that had developed about open office plans and meeting rooms where you would work, but when there's an internal meeting or there's an external client coming in, you would have these multiple meeting rooms, large and small. And this is one of the examples of one of our projects where we did similar things. There were training rooms, there were meeting rooms, there were cafes and open spaces, landscape areas where one could just branch out and look at that. So I think we'll have to rethink and improve them even further, which is something that we're already doing. So do we go back to our roots is the question. Many countries around the world have redefined their lifestyles, their way of living. They produce their own fruits and vegetables, have energy efficient homes, and most importantly, live as simply as they can. And like I showed examples of earlier work of ours, we did talk about this. And I think we've had these really amazing conversations the last two months where we've, even myself as a person, having a home office, we've been able to use our garden much more. We've been able to go out and play different sports within our garden. We played badminton, cricket, and other sports, and we were already growing some vegetables and fruits in our garden. Now we're actually planting more trees and looking at planting more vegetables. The solar panels were already in most cases now. People are generating their own electricity. And I think now we will be focusing on that. I think every client was already looking at insulations to keep the host, their own house, their building all insulated well. So I think this will catch up in a big way around the world, and people will be able to look at that in more detail. what has the change taught us? How do we minimize human-to-human contact? How do we look at work from home options for people to personally visit their place of work to reduce contagion? Uh, I think for me, I think this is something that it's point to point. I think in the last few weeks, I've been able to stay home, been able to work, and I realized that one of the things that we took for granted cannot be taken for granted. I also realized that family is very important. We get to meet some people that we just meet socially, which is probably not going to be possible. So the second question is, how do we minimize human-to-human contact? I think that's a very important thing that we've learned from things that are happening to us. It's a serious pandemic where people don't realize that masks are important, wearing a glove is important, sanitizing is important, washing your hands every few minutes, every few hours is important. Keeping yourself clean, making sure that your hands are very clean. I think people are not realizing it. In our part of the world, it's still not sunk in that it is very important to make sure that you have physical distancing. How do we look at work from the option solution for people who have to periodically visit their place? Again, we've been able to work remotely from our homes. My team has been, and I think, number of offices that I've spoken to are working from their home offices. And their staff is working from home. They are in contact through webinar, in contact through Zoom calls, from WhatsApp video calls. So I think and things are still moving. They're a bit slow, they're a bit new for us, but I don't think there is something that cannot be managed. To reduce the situation, to make sure that it's safe for everyone, I think it's a test of time. It is something that we'll have to, of course, experiment with, try and stay home and work out a way that we can work this way. I think the future will be online. And I think for some businesses, it will be harder, for some it will be better. But I think as I see it at least in Pakistan, where people will start coming in after the break, but that'll again be with our SOPs, with some kind of way that they'll be sitting away from each other. There will be less of human-to-human contact. And how can architecture help? What more can we do? I think we need to be sensitive now. Architects are very sensitive to the environment. At least most of them are. For them, the eco-friendly buildings are very crucial. And I think as architects, we need to go back and rethink, rework what for us is a good building, is a good building type, and really learn from this experience, learn from what we've gone through the last few weeks to what can be done or has to be done now. And I think we will come out with some really amazing solutions. We've already seen a number of really great ideas coming from the younger lot. And I think we need to talk to our mentors, our seniors. And we've got many in our country, we've got many around us who have experienced some changes and they know what really needs to be done now. So I'll end it by showing you an example of one of our conceptual sketches of a building that we've done, and the internal corridor. The idea of the connections between various spaces and how we were thinking, and it finally transferred into a building type which we're very proud of. The life of a designer is one of fight against the ugliness. I'm grateful that this particular forum was able to talk about this and kind of open our eyes to what and how people are thinking around the world. And I would only say that to everyone, that be safe, be healthy, and stay happy. Thank you very much, ACY. I'd like to thank them for inviting me to give this talk. Thank you again.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Architect Fawad. So we're now open for the question and answer. The first question, how has you become an architect? Because you co-founded your company with him.
Yeah. So what happened with my father was in another partnership earlier. And when I was coming back from college, he redefined the company and started a company called Suhail Fawad Architects, and I co-founded the company with him. And the experience has been amazing. It's been 2 decades now. It was I always wanted to be an architect. I remember going to sites with him when I was much younger, so there was no other way that I thought of anything else but be an architect. So I think it was an amazing experience to seeing him do these amazing buildings around the country, and then be able to be part of his team and learning from him. So it was amazing.
It must be really running in your blood too.
Yeah, it is. It is a very, I would think, a very arty family. My sister, my wife, everybody is either into arts, graphic designing, fine arts. So it's been amazing.
Okay, so all of you are into arts. Next question is from our attendees, architect Hajanta Pereira. How do you think you can manage touchless buildings?
Like I said, I've shown 2 examples of the recent projects that we're doing. One is the hotel project, and one is a mixed-use apartment and mall building. We are looking at completely, of course, technology is going to play a major part in doing that. And I think our clients are very, very open to the idea now, looking at the situation globally, that for a hotel, like I said, the clients are very open to the idea that you can do an online, so there'd be no touching at all. So you'll be doing an online check-in. You'll be doing an online calling the elevator through a phone, through an iPad, and of course, trying the same case works with the situation like a mall, where the escalators will have a automatic sanitizing system where one can even the handrails are cleaned automatically once it's been touched by someone. So these are things that will be very seriously taken up. And of course, automation and technology play a major role in that.
So it will be all technology based.
It will definitely be. I think we were already on that, but I think now it will be done in a bigger way.
For our next question, what are your views on the building design in this time of pandemic? What is the number of people who can use this space in a given instance? Do you think Pakistan can able to cope with it?
Pakistan, if you're looking at Pakistan has had some really good award-winning buildings that have come out in the last couple of years. And in Pakistan, there's been very a lot of importance given to buildings now that are self-sustaining, and there's been a huge focus towards that. And I think in a situation where we're going through now, I think the buildings and the building design will play a major role in Pakistan, is already in that direction. And we've seen some great work coming out of architects from Pakistan who are into green buildings and who are looking at green buildings as the future of the world.
Okay, that would be a great solution. So another question from architect Reniel Andaya. How can we apply smart building solutions while practicing adaptive building reuse?
Okay, again, I mean, in Pakistan's case, adaptive reuse is again a kind of a thing that's happened, and we've been using local contextual materials in the last many years. And a number of architects, and I would definitely call people like Yasmin Lari and people like in Pakistan, if I'm talking about Pakistani architects, they're great names who've actually looked at local adaptive reuse in terms, and there are people like Kamil Khan Mumtaz, who's one of the famous architects in Pakistan, and many others who have been able to transform building types or looked at adaptive reuse with the local contextual materials that are available in Pakistan. And they've really pushed the limits and pushed the boundaries to make sure that these materials are applied on their buildings, and the way they're constructed is also taught properly in Pakistan. So I think we're moving towards that, and the way the buildings are developing now, they're moving away from alien materials, but going into local contextual materials for the future.
Okay, so that will come as we progress too.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So we have few more questions. So how will you encourage the use of office pods, sound and insulated, air conditioned in an open space open office plan to respond with this pandemic situation?
I think Alora, that's something is fairly new for all of us right now. We're still going to be debating and looking at solutions. It's a hard hit to most of us, to people who understand the importance of sustainability and green. And I think we were not at all prepared for this. So I think solutions will come. It'll take some time. You talk about the MEP design, we have to revisit it, of course, where we talk about HVAC design or mechanical design, we'll have to rework it or rethink it. And I think there'll be a number of seminars that are going to happen where we'll all have to sit together and look at solutions for the new world order. And I think it will take a bit of time till we come up to a better solution of how and where and the way to apply it right. So I think it's going to take a little bit more time to understand the right solutions.
Okay, so we'll just have two more questions from Architect Shehan. They said that very informative talk it was. So how much post-COVID will affect architecture economically while moving forwards automation?
Well, I think a number of larger firms are going to be hit more, because I think medium-sized firms or firms that are working with joint ventures will be, so if it's a smaller office, we'll be hit a little less because we haven't spread ourselves too much. But I think a number of new partnerships will develop where a few firms or one or two firms will do joint ventures to make sure that they're sustained. Of course, economically, everybody is going to be hit in a big way. We've already seen examples, and we'll see more examples in the coming months where there'll be economical hit to these younger firms as well. And of course, the larger firms will have to minimize their staff. If they can afford to work online, they will still have to manage less staff. So it's going to be difficult. It's a difficult time for all of us, but I think we'll pass it soon. But again, I think a number of joint ventures or partnerships will develop now, enable to sustain younger architects or offices that are much larger.
Okay, for our last question, so what is your advice for the future generation of architects to be more mindful in their design practices in the event of another global crisis?
I think this was a shocker for all of us, and I think my advice would be, because at least that's what we practice, that's what I've been taught by my father, and that's what my team and we all practice, is to look at sustainable design, to look at simple design. That is something people have forgotten. They're always looking at doing these expensive buildings, not looking at insulation, not looking at cost effectiveness, and just not looking at materials that are locally available. So I think my advice, because I think I'm too young to advise, but I have great people like in my country. I have great people like Architect Ijaz Ahad and people like many people like Shahab Ghani Saab and many others who have been able to tell us, and Kaleem Siddiqui and all of these people who keep talking about it to the younger lot, that this is the time to make amends and look at systems and solutions that are going to impact the world from now onwards. So I think we need to look at sustainable design. We need to look at green buildings, and we definitely need to look at simple buildings so that they're easy to maintain for a lifetime. That's how I look at architecture now.
Okay, so thank you, Architect Fawad, for that amazing and wonderful sharing for the brief overview challenges of design practices about pre and post COVID, how the situation has impacted the way we build and design. So very interesting in your proposal. So I hope these proposals and discussions can help us resolve the design and the problems caused by this pandemic. So indeed, this does take more than a global crisis to change your perspective and design. So we only can take a few questions. So thank you for answering those, and I hope that the answers are applicable to all of you. So again, thank you for your wonderful talk. For the attendees, yes.
I'd like to thank the ACYA for sure for doing this, and I hope.
So for the attendees, we will have a poll survey. So kindly answer it before you leave the Zoom meeting. Yes, Architect
Sorry,
Fawad.
I just want to thank ACYA for this amazing opportunity. Being one of the founding chairman of the ACYA, I'm so proud that amazing people have joined in, and this is great things are happening. You guys are so amazing in every way possible. Zuhan, we've got the Rida Razak and Bismarck Screen, all the amazing people like Denny Satyavan and Fazmi and you, of course, and many others who are part of ACYA and for the future of the country, the future of the world. I think ACYA will do a great service. Thank you very much.
Thank you to also. Thank you also. We're so proud that we have you as the first Acya chair. So again, thank you, Architect Fawad. So the slides will be emailed to your registered emailed address for the participants who joined. So we will end this webinar and see you again on the 30th of May, 2020 with Architect Sepko from Hong Kong on our next session by Acya. So stay safe, everyone. So please answer the phone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.